Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I've talked about this before, but Invicta is a brand that everybody seems to love to hate. They get pelters from all directions on YouTube and in most of the watch forums. I think there's a few different reasons for that. Some of their designs are not to everyone's taste, especially the larger and, shall we say, bolder versions. I also think that their QVC home shopping channel, hey, it's normally $9.99, but today only it's $99, pricing strategy rubs people up the wrong way with some justification. Also, there seemingly are question marks about the build quality of some of their watches. You read a lot of reports, a lot of the comments that they don't perhaps last as long as you would like them to. But the one Invicta watch that it seems to be okay to love is the Pro Diver, their 40mm Submariner homage. Now, I have a bit of experience already with the Pro Diver under my belt. I borrowed Ivan over at Perth Watch. I borrowed his blue dialed version towards the end of 2017, and I thought it was actually alright. That was my first encounter with it. I then picked up a Mickey Mouse dialed version just before Christmas. Oh, the irony. Now that one I like, I'm going to keep it standard, it's going to stay in my collection. But Mickey makes the dial almost illegible. So I thought I would revisit the standard 8926 OB black dial version, in my opinion the classic one. It's the one that most looks like the Rolex upon which it was based, and I'd give this one a proper going over. I feel now I've got enough experience with the watch to answer the question on the thumbnail: is it trash or is it treasure? Let's flip the camera and find out, shall we? So pretty straightforward premise today. That's the question I'm hoping to answer over the course of this video. Is this Invicta Pro Diver trash or is it treasure? All the usual review components will be here, but I'm going to slightly change the order today, and I hope it makes sense why I did it when we all get to the end of the video. So dimensions and specifications, then I'm going to do positives, negatives, then I'm going to talk about price towards the end. You know I love talking about price up front, but I'm going to talk about it at the end today, and then conclusions after that. So, whether it is trash or treasure, it comes in this nice little Invicta yellow box, bit of a signature. If it was green, it would look very much like a Rolex box, and obviously that's a theme that continues when we get the watch open. Clearly this Pro Diver is designed to look quite a lot like a slightly older generation Rolex Submariner. Now, let me be clear from the beginning, this watch is not trying to look like it is a Rolex Submariner. There are plenty of Invicta labels, you know, Invicta scroll down the side there. People who buy this watch aren't trying to pretend they've got a Rolex on their wrist, far from it. People who buy this watch want the look of a Rolex, but for a very, very small percentage of the price. Let's also be clear, Rolex do not have copyrights, there are no patents on this design. Companies are more than welcome to make something that looks like a Rolex Submariner, as long as it doesn't say Rolex on the dial. If it does, then it's a fake or a copy. This is neither of those things, it is an homage. Therefore, the dimensions are pretty much what you would expect if you had picked up a real Rolex. 40mm in diameter, 47.5 lug tip to lug tip. Now 14.2mm thick. It's a bit thicker than a Rolex, and I will talk about that girth, the relative girth, a little later on as well. 20mm lug width, and sized up for me. I've got a 7-inch wrist, so this one has been sized for me. This one weighs in at 145 grams, so, you know, more or less a mil here, a gram or two there, but designed to look and feel very much like a Submariner on your wrist. 316L stainless steel case, crown, bezel and bracelet. Now we have solid links with push pins. We only have hollow end links with this one today. There's a display case back, I'll show you that in just a second, also made of stainless steel. Now the clasp is a pressed clasp. Fold over but no security pushers, and as you can see there, it is just a press clasp, as I said. So you could argue that that looks like a Rolex from the 90s or the early noughties as well. Invicta logo there once again, proudly stamped onto the fold over clasp, again not trying to be something that it isn't. The clasp though, I have to say, is alright, pretty basic, but at least it offers 4 micro adjust holes there, so no excuse for not getting a good fit with this one. Now back to the front of the watch, aluminium bezel insert with lume pip. We have got a 120 click unidirectional rotating dive time bezel. It is not massively grippy, you do need to work it a touch to rotate it, but There's a little bit of bounce, there's not too much, and the action is quite nice. It's kind of nice and snicky, makes a satisfying noise. Mineral crystal covering the dial, so you don't get sapphire with this one, just mineral crystal, but there is a Cyclops magnifier, and it's actually quite effective. So that's the dimensions and specifications out of the way. I'm going to do 5 positives followed by 5 negatives. The first positives, overall, bit of a spec monster for the cash. There really aren't too many 200 meter automatic dive watches for less than $100 US, so you can't really argue with the overall value equation. Stainless steel construction, reasonable bracelets, stainless steel solid links, they're not rolled links or anything like that. There's a loom pip on that bezel. The Cyclops, as noted, is actually quite usable. The whole thing looks pretty decent as well, so you can't argue with the basic on-paper specs for the cash. Second positive, it wears pretty well. Now obviously trying to copy the design of a Rolex mercilessly, a Rolex that's been in production since the 1950s, means you're going to get a similar experience, if not identical, to you would do from the original watch, one that has been kind of honed and refined and just wears beautifully. So the Invicta does not bad for itself. If you're just getting started out in watches, I know that this is a popular kind of first automatic, people pick up one of these. I think it's a great benchmark. You can decide which direction you want to go in the hobby, whether you want to stay at this affordable end of the market, whether you like a big watch, a small watch, whether you're into divers, whether you're into autos, whether you like stainless steel or you're into NATOs or bracelets. I think this is a great kind of benchmark to start people off as a consequence of the fact that it's kind of in the middle. It's the kind of Goldilocks' porridge at 40 mil and 145 grams. The third positive, and we'll go macro for this, is that it's not trying to be anything else. It's an Invicta, and if you're a fan of the brand, if you're a supporter of the company, then you'll be happy that they haven't shied away from sticking their logo and or their name pretty much all over the thing. On the clasp, on the side of the case, there's the big Invicta logo under the 12, and there's that little counterbalance. So some nice details overall then that differentiate this from the other 200 different subby clones on the market. The fourth positive is that there are heaps of different ones available. I bought the Captain Sensible black dialed version with the coin edge bezel, but you can get a scalloped bezel a la Omega. You can get it in blue, you can get it in two-tone black and gold, you can get it in all golden black, you can get the bluesy version. You will find one of these pro divers to suit your personal taste. And the fifth and biggest positive is this. This for me really is the big draw. This is the ace card of the Invicta Pro Diver range. It's a Seiko NH35A. This is arguably the best movement that you can buy in a watch for less than $100. Made by Seiko, 24 jewels, it hacks, it hand winds so you can set it accurately and you can give it a full wind if you've just popped it on your wrist for the first time or you're going to take it off for a day. They're rugged, robust, reliable and accurate. Stated tolerances are -20 to +40, which sounds a little bit loose, but they generally run a lot better than that. Let's pop this one on the time grapher and see how it's performing. And there we are, this one running very nicely indeed at +2 seconds, +3 seconds per day when it's lying in the kind of default flat on its back position. I've had the odd rogue, I've had the odd one out at +20 or -20, but the majority of these Seiko NH35 and NH36 movements that I've reviewed on the channel, and I've reviewed quite a few, have come in with a +10 seconds per day variance window, and you simply cannot argue with accuracy like that out of a budget automatic watch. Alright, so that was 5 positives. Let's pile on the hate. No, I'm only kidding, but let's talk about 5 elements of this watch that I don't think are as good. The first is, it's a bit thick. 14 and a bit mil, kind of bulbous rear end on this one. The case back protrudes rather unnecessarily, I think. It doesn't fit on the wrist as nicely as the Rolex Submariner or as nicely as some other subby homages that are around this price because of that kind of bulbous case back. Seiko NH35 is quite a tall movement, but I've seen other watches that have managed to do the same thing with less than 14.2 mil. So it's a bit thick, doesn't wear quite as nicely as it should as a consequence. Second negative, the loom is crap. But then again, I could say that of pretty much any other dive watch that I've looked at under $100. At least it does have a bit of loom on the pip, but the stuff on the indices, on the dial, is worthless. It really is worthless. The hands hang on in there a little bit longer, but no good really. You're not going to be relying on this one underwater if loom is part of the equation. And talk about a double-edged sword. All of those little touches that make this an Invicta make this look a bit cheap. Not sure why they've gone for polished mid-links when the Rolex Submariner doesn't have polished mid-links, it's all brushed, they cheapen the look, as does that logo etched down the side. The logo itself on the dial is a little bit shiny, the counterbalance the same thing. So as much as it's an Invicta above all else, all those little details that differentiate it as such don't enhance the overall look. In my opinion, I think they cheapen it. And yet more macro for complaint number 4, neg number 4. The finishing on those lugs is pretty rough. Now it's not all that much rougher than the Squale 1545 I reviewed last year, but here it is side by side with a LOREO Submariner, which costs just about the same money. The LOREO much better finished than the Invicta. And my fifth and final neg mostly concerns the bracelet. It doesn't give the watch a feeling of quality overall. It's a little bit jingly jangly, as you can hear there. Perhaps that's a consequence of the hollow end links. The tolerances in the bracelet, there's perhaps a bit too much flex for a watch that is box fresh. Press clasp is not the worst in the world, but overall, it just doesn't. It squeaks, it rattles, it doesn't feel particularly well made, which is one of the criticisms of Invicta watches in general that I talked about in the introduction today. So that's some positives and some negatives then. That's Mickey, by the way. What time is it? No bloody idea. You can see why I didn't want to review this one. It would have been unfair to have judged the watch against one of its stablemates where you can barely tell what time it is, but I do enjoy that one. It's a fun watch to wear occasionally. So let's talk then about price. Now, I can't think of another watch where the price is as variable as these Invicta Pro Divers. I've seen these for less than $50 US all the way up to $85 US or more. Amazon at the moment, the best prices, I'll leave a link to that in the description of the video, it's in my Amazon store selection, around the $80 US, just under 80. I couldn't find anything better than that on eBay today either. I paid about 70 for this one. That was on Amazon Australia, which is a rare purchase because the prices are still pretty exorbitant on Amazon Australia. So what does that mean for the overall judgment today? Trash or treasure then? Well, I would obviously be far more comfortable recommending this watch to you at $55 US rather than $85 US. I think at 55, the strength of that Seiko NH35 movement is a big draw card. There isn't anything that can touch this one at that price. There are no other divers that are Seiko powered, automatic 200-meter screw down crown for 55 bucks. I get less and less comfortable recommending it as that price pushes up over $75. I think $75 is my limit. I wouldn't recommend it to you over $75, and I'll show you a couple of reasons why I wouldn't recommend it. When I first reviewed the Invicta in late 2017, I guess I was coming down to it from the Phoebus PY006, which was the previous cheapest Rolex Submariner homage that I'd reviewed at $169 US. Now I have got quite a lot more experience of these sub $100 Rolex Submariner homages. You can see a couple here by Star King, one by Pagani, one by LOREO, couple of Invictas in the middle. I think at $55 US, the Invicta's the winner. At $80 US, I would be going for the LOREO all day long. These ones currently sit at $65 US on AliExpress. I'll leave another link to that one in the description of the video. It's got sapphire crystal and it feels a much more solidly put together watch than the Invicta. So, $55, it's a yes, $65, yes, $70, yes, $75, maybe, $80, no. There are better watches out there for the money. So trash or treasure then? Well, it is definitely not trash. I wouldn't say that of this little watch at all. But my recommendation definitely hinges on the price that you can find it for. So if you want one, set an Amazon alert or do some digging. Much better watch at $55.60 than at $75.80 or even more than that. So there you have it, the Invicta Pro Diver, trash or treasure. Well, my buy recommendation, if you will, on this one is contingent on the price that you pay for it. I can't think of another watch that has such wild pricing fluctuations on a weekly basis. These ones seem to bounce from $55 to $85 on Amazon and somewhere often in between. Obviously, I would be far more inclined to recommend it at $55 than $85, especially considering some of the other cheap Submariner homages that are available once you push up towards the $85 end of of that particular spectrum. At $55 though, this watch I think offers a hell of a lot as a kind of casual wear watch, as a bit of a beater watch, or if you're just starting out in watch collecting, I think one of these is a great place to start. You don't get many Seiko powered automatic dive watches with 200 meters of water resistance and a stainless steel bracelet for $55, do you? You certainly don't get that from Seiko. So, trash or treasure? Well, if you get it at the right price, I reckon it's a bit of a nugget. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.